In the heart of his ministry, surrounded by a crowd of listeners on a Galilean hillside, Jesus delivered what is now known as the Sermon on the Mount. It is here, in this profound collection of teachings, that he bestowed upon his followers a simple yet deeply meaningful identity. He looked at the ordinary people before him, fishermen, tax collectors, and humble believers, and said, "You are the salt of the earth." This wasn't just a turn of phrase, it was a powerful metaphor, an image that would have resonated instantly with everyone in the ancient world. But for us, living thousands of years later, the true weight of this statement can be easily lost. We live in an age of convenience, where salt is an inexpensive and seemingly infinite commodity found in every kitchen and on every restaurant table. Its abundance has made it common. Because of this, we often fail to grasp the layers of meaning packed into Jesus' words, missing the profound calling he was issuing. To truly understand, we must journey back in time and see salt through the eyes of his original audience. In the first-century world, salt was far from ordinary. It was a precious, vital commodity, so valuable that it was often referred to as white gold. Entire trade routes were established for it, and wars were fought over its control. Roman soldiers were sometimes paid in salt, a practice that gives us the modern word salary, and the expression that someone is worth their salt. It was a symbol of wealth, stability, and life itself. Beyond its economic value, salt had several critical functions. It was the primary agent for enhancing flavor, transforming a bland and monotonous meal into something enjoyable and savory. It brought out the best in food, making its inherent qualities more pronounced. Even more importantly, salt was a preservative. In an era before refrigeration, it was the only reliable way to prevent food from spoiling. Meat and fish were packed in salt, not just for flavor, but for survival, allowing food to be stored and transported over long distances. Salt literally stopped the process of decay and corruption, holding back the natural tendency toward rot. And finally, salt held deep religious and cultural significance. It was used to seal covenants. In the Old Testament, a covenant of salt signified a binding, unbreakable, and enduring promise between parties, including between God and his people. Its presence symbolized purity, loyalty, and permanence. So when Jesus told his disciples, "You are the salt of the earth," he was elevating them with this rich, multi-layered identity. He was not merely giving them a compliment. He was defining their purpose and their essential role in the world. He was saying they were to be agents of preservation, flavor, and covenant faithfulness in a world prone to moral decay, blandness, and broken promises. This declaration comes immediately after the Beatitudes, where Jesus describes the character of those who belong to God's kingdom, the poor in spirit, the merciful, the pure in heart. Having defined their inner being, he then turned to their outward function. Their blessed character was not meant to be kept in isolation, but was destined to have a profound impact on the world around them. But with this high calling came a solemn warning. Jesus continued, "But if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything, except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot." To understand this startling image of useless salt, we must first understand how salt functioned in the ancient world. The salt used in Jesus' day, often harvested from the Dead Sea or from salt marshes, was not the pure sodium chloride we use today. It was frequently mixed with other minerals and impurities. If this impure salt was exposed to moisture, the true salt, the sodium chloride, could be leached away, leaving behind only a tasteless mineral residue that looked like salt but had none of its preserving or flavoring properties. It had lost its saltiness. This substance was worthless. It couldn't even be used as fertilizer because the remaining mineral deposits would poison the soil. Its only use was to be thrown onto paths, where it would be trampled into the ground. In the same way, Jesus was telling his followers that their lives are meant to be a preserving influence, slowing the moral and spiritual decay of the world around them. When believers live with integrity, compassion, and truth, they act as a divine preservative, helping to sustain what is good, just, and beautiful within a culture. They are the conscience of a society, quietly but powerfully holding back the tide of corruption. But within this profound affirmation, Jesus also embedded a solemn warning, a question that echoes through the centuries, challenging the very core of our faith. He asked what would happen if salt loses its saltiness. How, he questioned, can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. This is a startling and powerful image. To understand its weight, we must first understand the nature of salt in the ancient world. Pure salt, sodium chloride, cannot actually lose its chemical properties. But the salt used in Jesus' time was rarely pure. It was often harvested from salt marshes or the Dead Sea and came mixed with other tasteless, look-alike minerals like gypsum. If this impure salt was exposed to moisture, the true salt, the sodium chloride, could dissolve and leach away, leaving behind a worthless, flavorless powder. What remained looked like salt, but it no longer had any of the qualities that made salt so valuable. It was useless for preserving, useless for seasoning, and was simply discarded. Jesus used this potent, everyday image as a profound warning about spiritual authenticity. He was cautioning against a faith that is merely external, a religion of appearances. It's possible for a person to appear outwardly religious, to perform all the correct rituals and say all the right words, while lacking the genuine inner transformation that gives faith its life and power. This is a faith that has lost its saltiness. The result is something that looks like faith but no longer influences the world around it. It becomes a hollow performance, unable to preserve goodness or bring the flavor of God's kingdom into a bland and decaying world. It has lost its divine purpose. But the metaphor doesn't end with a warning. It blossoms into a beautiful description of our calling. Salt also had another vital and universally understood function. It enhanced flavor. Food without salt can taste bland, one-dimensional, and lifeless. Salt doesn't overpower the food, it awakens it. It brings out the richness, depth, and complexity that is already present, allowing the true character of the meal to be fully experienced and enjoyed. In the same way, the presence of people who live according to God's truth can bring goodness, compassion, and wisdom into the environments where they live and work. They are called to be agents of flavor, drawing out the good that God has already woven into creation. Their influence, through acts of kindness, words of encouragement, and a commitment to justice, helps reveal what is good, true, and meaningful in life, making the world a more savory and beautiful place. Finally, there is a third layer to this metaphor, one deeply rooted in the history of God's relationship with His people. There is a powerful and fascinating connection between salt and covenant in the Bible. In several places in the Old Testament, sacred and binding agreements were described as covenants of salt. Because salt was a mineral that endured, that did not decay, it became a powerful symbol of permanence, loyalty, and faithfulness. A covenant of salt was an unbreakable promise, a relationship intended to last forever. It signified a bond that was as enduring and reliable as salt itself. When Jesus called his followers the salt of the earth, he was likely also reminding them of their place in this sacred story. He was inviting them into a covenant relationship with God, one marked by unwavering faithfulness. Their lives were meant to be a living testimony to God's own faithfulness. They were to demonstrate the stability, the permanence, and the steadfast love that comes from walking with Him, reflecting the unbreakable nature of His promises to a world in constant flux. After describing His followers as the salt of the earth, a preserving agent working from within, Jesus then followed this teaching with another closely related image. He shifted from the subtle to the conspicuous, from an internal quality to an external expression of faith. He looked at the crowd of ordinary people before him and declared, "You are the light of the world." This wasn't a suggestion, but a statement of identity. Where salt influences quietly from within, preserving and adding flavor in unseen ways, light has a different function. Light shines outward, dispelling darkness, revealing the path, and making things visible so that others can see. It cannot be hidden. Together, these two powerful images describe the profound and holistic influence believers are called to have on the world around them. It's a dual calling, to be a force for internal purity and a beacon of external hope. This influence is not achieved through domination or force, or by imposing our will upon others. Rather, it flows naturally from a life transformed, through quiet integrity in our work, through faithful character when no one is watching, and through visible acts of goodness and compassion that point to a greater love. The message of these metaphors is both deeply encouraging and profoundly challenging. It's encouraging because Jesus was telling ordinary people, fishermen, tax collectors, homemakers, that their seemingly small lives could have a meaningful, world-changing influence. Your life matters. But it's also challenging because he was reminding them that this divine influence depends entirely on authenticity. It cannot be faked or manufactured. Salt must remain salty to be effective. If it loses its essential nature, it becomes worthless. In the same way, our faith must remain genuine, rooted in a real relationship with God. And when it does, when our inner character is aligned with our outward actions, even the smallest acts of truth and kindness can have a powerful, rippling impact on the world around us. This is the beautiful responsibility we are given. That is the challenge and the calling behind Jesus' words. You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. Thank you for watching. If this message spoke to your heart or opened your eyes, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to our channel for more truth-filled, spirit-led content. Together, we can be a voice for the voiceless, a light in the darkness, and a force for good in this broken world. God bless you, and we'll see you in the next video.